and welcome to our video on creating user roles in the WebGrants system. User roles are created in the system and they create a hierarchy of access so that not all users have the same privilege to access the entire system. User roles are actually created by the admins, probably your global admin. It really depends on what the global admin determines through the role they create. So it could be a program admin's responsibility. Again, these roles can be created by the global admin so they can determine if you have access as a program area admin or not. But it's typically a global admin responsibility. An example is you would not give form creator access to an internal user that hasn't had that training or that doesn't even need to be in that area. You know, they could create havoc in the system, delete forms that are in use and that have already, captured data in the tables, things like that. So you really want to just make sure the person that's logged into the system can get their job done and nothing more, right? We don't want too many hands in the pot. So therefore, we create user roles and assign them to users to grant the access to the areas or modules we need. The WebGrants system includes standard rules. As you go through training, those are already developed. Now you can update these rules or add additional rules as you need them. You could go live with the existing rules, but if you need additional rules created, this is what this video is all about. I'm also going to talk about how to assign them. Okay, and so another important note before we jump in is the rules that you will be creating will be for your internal staff. All external user rules have already been created. They can only access their own items. So an external user can be granted more access, like to sign a contract or to be a reviewer, but those items have already been created. So when we're talking about creating these user roles, you're really thinking about your internal staff. And that grantee role that is for your external users, it's automatically assigned when an external user is approved to use the system, so you don't have to worry about the external user roles unless, again, you're giving them additional access to beyond the grantee role. Okay, so first I'm going to take you into a person's profile. This is just an example person I have pulled up. So this internal staff needs a role. If we don't give them a role or program areas, then they will have a blank menu when they log in. So we have that. This is how they have the menu, and it determines what they can and can't do in the system. And if they're blocked from a portion of it, they may only see like half of the menu. It's really determined by their role. So I'm going to click on the role tab here. And again, depending on who you are and what access you have, you may or may not see some of these tabs. You may not have access to assign roles to a person. And then beyond that, you may have access to assign roles to a person, but you may not have access to create new roles. So you may only just be selecting roles that exist, right? But when you go to actually like see the roles and utilities as an admin, you might get blocked. So it just depends, again, on the role you are assigned, if you can see what I'm showing you. So here, the names, you can name them whatever makes sense to you. These are pretty typical that I'm displaying here. But what I want to show is this is how you assign a user their role. And what it's going to do, if you have access to assign roles, it's not going to let you assign a role higher than your own or at your same level. So see these numbers here in the level column? That's how that's determined. So if I am a level 2 person, so I've got a level 2 role, and I have access to assign roles to people, I can come in here and I can assign them a role 3, 4, 5, and 6, but not a 2 or a 1. So I can't give them more access than what I already have. Okay, now I'm logged in and I have full access right now, so I can assign anything. You also don't want to do something like this where you don't know what to give them, and so you give them access to like everything. One person should have one main role. Then they can have approvals on top. So if this person is a program area admin, they could look like this, where their main role is the program area admin, and then this particular person can approve claims at level 2 and amendments at level 1. If you would do it like this, where you've got multiple main roles, it's a conflict. So like this one doesn't have access to the form creator, but this one does. If you do that, they're going to get a lot of access denied errors because one role is blocking them from an area, one's granting it, and it doesn't know what to do because it's a conflict again. So again, one main role, what is their main job in the system? And sometimes people will title their roles like they actually have the titles for the person. So like a finance officer, that's that, you know, a title someone has. Well, they'll create a finance officer role, a claim processor, whatever that may be, program officer or something like that. You can actually name your role to where it matches your titles. I've seen it done that way. But that main role and then approvals on top of it. Because again, someone else might be a program area admin, but they're approving claims at a different level. So theirs would look maybe like this. And that'd be a totally different person. Not everybody should be able to do everything in the system. So that's the assigning of the roles. Now, if you have privilege to actually get to the roles in utilities, that would mean you're an admin. Let's say you don't know what this role privilege is, has in it. You could click on it and it'll actually pop you down. If you notice, my menu just changed to utilities and I'm within that role and I can see the privilege access this role has. You may not be able to do that. Like I said, you may just be able to assign staff the role, and then these would not be hyperlinks where you can't get into the actual utilities. It depends on your own access, but a lot of internal staff have the ability to assign roles. They just can't create new or actually edit the roles in there. So it depends on your access, but that's a nice way if you're a high admin and you want to know what this role contains. You can pop down that way from the actual people's database looking at a person's roles. So that's one way. Another way, if you go utilities, user roles, here's all the roles that I'm displaying on this particular system. So it depends on what role you want to look at. You'll just click on that role. So I'm going to go with like a program area admin, no forms. This to me means no form creator. Again, you can name your roles whatever you'd like. So when you are creating a role, you really have to put some thought into this when it comes to the level here. This level, again, controls who can and cannot assign it, right? And so if you're giving a lot of access, especially a lot of edits and deletes within your privileges, you want to make that a higher level role. And it really just depends on the type of access. So you're the one creating this, so you have to put some thought into it. So this is a level 3. It's still a pretty high admin. They just don't have like the utilities and the form creator, but they can do a lot within the system. So I'm going to kind of walk you through what this person, if someone was assigned this role, what they would see on their menu. And then we'll create one brand new as well. So in my privilege list, this lists everything that's possible in the system, and that's a lot. It can be overwhelming. So you really want to think about the role you're creating and what they should be able to do, and that'll help you when you're looking through this. So just this little block here, these privileges, those are all the privileges a person can have within the people's database. That's it, just that one area of people. So how it goes is if you want them to have access to the people's database at a bare minimum, you have to have the read-only. Then from there, you determine what they should do. So this gets it on their menu. If I check that, then they will have that button over here on their menu. Then from there, within the people's database, should they be able to add people? Should they be able to edit existing people? Delete? Like this person can't merge, they won't even see that option. They can see agency, but they can't edit a person's agency. They can't even see the tab to assign someone program areas, let alone edit them. It won't even exist to them. We were talking about a person that could or could not see tabs. Those tabs, when I was in that profile of that person, they wouldn't see or be able to assign roles or programs. But they could see alerts and edit the alerts. That's subscribing to the alerts, that tab there. in the user info tab and edit it, and so on. Then you move on to the next area, and that's organizations. So yes, they see the organization database, they can add, edit, delete, but they can't merge, and so on. New user list. Can they approve new users? Distribution list, and so on. So I'm going to scroll through here. And again, it's not overwhelming if you think about the role you're creating. So and the one we're going to create together is like a finance officer. If you would take that role and go, okay, I'm going to create a finance officer role. Really think about what that title means and what that person should and shouldn't be doing. And it's a lot better to go through here and you can skip it, go, yeah, they're not going to do applications. Yeah, they're not going to review applications, but they need full grant tracking access and definitely claim access and awards and appropriations, and it'll help you narrow this down. You can always come back and edit them later. If it's a brand new role and you assign it to that person you created it for, and you could assign it to multiple people. You can always come back and edit it later and bump it up or decrease their access if you need to. Just keep in mind, when you edit this role, you are impacting everyone that's assigned this role. Use this assigned users, this blue button, before you edit a role to see who you're impacting, and it'll tell you everybody that's assigned to this role. That way you know when you're changing this, who you're affecting. There's another way to do a search. If you can't get to the user role area, you can actually go to the people's database and do an advanced search. And this is really handy. This will tell somebody, you can search by a role. You can even search by a privilege. If you want to really narrow it down and say, well, who can, get to utilities, user roles, you can go like that. I'm going to leave this link and just go vague. Who has access to program area admin no forms? If I search, then I get the same list there. So this would be a way to search if you don't have the utilities access. So that's how you figure out what that role does. If you want to take it a step further and actually see what this role does, if you've created it brand new and you want to test it before you assign it to somebody, I do highly recommend that you have basically a fake user that you would know the password to, that you would put like the name role tester as their name and just use it to test roles. The reason why is you never want to test it with your own account. You will actually demote yourself. So if you're a high-level admin that has access to utilities and now you're creating a finance officer role that's a lower access than you, the proper way to test that role is to make sure the person that's testing it only has that role assigned. We don't want multiple roles assigned to a person, or then you're not really getting a full picture of what that role is letting them do or not do. So you'd end up unassigning your own role and assigning that role, and then when you log in, because of the level, you could not reassign that higher level role back to yourself, and you end up demoting yourself, and then you have to contact someone higher to reassign your role back to you. So if you really want to test them ahead of time, that's fine. Create a role tester internal login and assign your roles to that person. You can log in as them and see what that looks like, and we'll go ahead and we'll do that today. Okay, so I'm going to back up out of this and I'm going to create one brand new. I'm going to name it appropriately. So remember, not everybody can pop down here and see what this is. So make sure you name it, to what makes sense for your agency. So I'm going to say finance officer. You can see I've done that before. Finance officer. They're going to have about half the system. They're going to have full access though in grant tracking, claims, awards, appropriations. So quite a bit of access, editing, deleting access for about half the system. So that's still a pretty decent role. I'm going to give them a lot of edits and deletes and get them the voucher access. So I'm going to go up to like a level 3. That's just as high as a lower level admin. So it's still a lot of access. And then from here, again, we're only creating roles for internal staff. The rest have already been created. So generally it's going to look like this. You're going to name it, give it a level depending on the access, and then whatever type of user, it'll usually be internal staff. Okay, so should my finance officer be able to see the people in our database? Well, I would say yes, right? If they're in a grant and managing claims, they should be able to see, the people and orgs associated with those grants. Now, they probably shouldn't be able to like add and edit and manage the people and organization database as a finance officer. And this is just an example. So, but I'm going to give them people and organizations on their menu so they can see the people and organizations, but I'm not going to give them any privilege other than that. With the exception, I will say this, there is an exception. Everybody should be able to subscribe to their own alerts. So I'm going to go ahead and give them alerts, edit alerts, so they can go in and subscribe to the alerts they want. Otherwise, you're controlling it and you're going to have to subscribe to the alerts for them. So that way they can find themselves in the people's database and subscribe to their alerts. Organizations, read only. I'm not going to allow them to approve new users. They don't need distribution lists. So I'm going to bypass all the application stuff, but they will need full access to the awards module and add, edit, delete. That's this over here. That's the award that you would receive that you're self-granting out. So a finance officer would be very involved in that. Now, would they be involved in the funding opportunity, and which is sometimes called an RFP? Probably not, but would they need to maybe see it? Maybe. They'll probably, they might at some time need to see the funding opportunity that grant was granted under. And so I'm going to give them a view only of that. They can't add, edit. They could definitely not create a new one. And again, I'm going to pass applications, reviews, final approval, but here's grant tracking. So they're not going to be involved in the application process, the review of the application process. They won't even be involved in awarding those applications. They're going to be in with full access once we get into grant tracking the already awarded projects. And as you can see, I'm giving them full access. So they're going to have grant tracking, add, edit, and delete. You can also edit the form, select the budget, and the general information. Now from here, you'll see your subcomponents. And we don't hide, this is a recommendation, but it really helps if you don't hide your approvals within the main role. So my main role that I'm creating is finance officer. Now finance officer could approve claims at level 2 and maybe level 4. But I want to be able to have multiple finance officers for maybe different programs, and they might each have to approve claims at a different level. So if I take Sally and I take Susie and I'm adding all levels of approval, then they can all approve at all levels, and that doesn't really make sense, right? It's the security of the system and what they can and can't do. So they should only be able to do their own job. If you hide these approvals within the main role, it's going to be hard to manage who can and can't approve at certain levels. So I'm going to go finance officer, and I'm not going to put any approvals in here. I will assign the approvals as a separate role for that person. Okay, so they should definitely have access to claims. And this is where I'm going to give them full access. Add, edit, delete. Marcus paid, apply appropriations. That's the actual voucher. And a finance officer would definitely need access to that voucher. Let's see, and we'll let them see the approval, but not actually complete the approval within this role. We'll get to the next subcomponent, amendments. I'm not sure if a finance officer would be editing, deleting amendments, but we'll let them see them. Same with status reports, same with site visits. Contracts, I'm going to do it the same. They can do a view. And then appropriations, that's where you actually commit the funds that's going to pay for that grant. So that would be something they would need full access to. We'll be doing inventory or loans. Now, reporting access to run a report and actually extract the data, yeah, probably. And then utilities, drop-down list, and form creator here. That's all admin functionality, which I'm not even going to really look at for a finance officer. They don't need any type of admin access. So this would be a great place to start for this role. And now my next step is, again, you could just go assign it to that person and then have them log in and make sure they can get their job done. Or if you want to test it ahead of time, I'm going to show you how to do that. So over here on this other tab, I have my person named role tester, right? And if I look at the role tab, they don't have anything assigned yet. So a very clean person in the people's database. I'm going to find my role that I created, and that's the only thing I'm going to assign, because I want to make sure I'm just testing that role. And now I'll actually log in as that person. Okay, so you can see now my menu is already way smaller than the other user I was logged into, right? So I've already blocked them from several areas. For example, I don't have utilities at all. Everybody will have their own dashboard, but people and orgs, like I only have 3 tabs under here within the people. Notice I don't have my tabs. Again, I gave them alerts, but all those program areas, the roles, the user info tab, those don't even appear for me, right? I don't have an edit button. I block them from that. And as you can see, they're not even aware that it should have been there, right? They can't see it. And everybody can see their own profile. But then they have full access to awards, funding opportunities would be view only, full access to grant tracking, and then they can get to reports. So this is a great way to test and make sure they can get their job done in the system. And again, nothing more. This concludes our video on creating user roles in the WebGrants system. Thank you for watching.